Today, we're going to talk about fossils from under the sea that were found in Oxfordshire. Crazy, right? Because we're nowhere near the sea. We're going to start today with Animites. Animites are an extinct relative of sea creatures, and they were around during the Jurassic period. That's a long, long time ago. They're a very common fossil, and they're formed through the process of fossilisation. If you're unsure what that is, check out our first video in the dinosaur garden. There are also many types of cast and mould fossils that are Animites. As you can see, I have a mould here and a cast as well. The Animite creature was a bit like a squid. It would be in the end of the shell, and the rest of the shell would be filled with gas. This helps the Animite to float along the sea floor and eat all of the algae and plankton that it can. Let's talk about Echonoidia. Echonoidia are a marine animal that is extinct, that has a hard shell and a spine that runs through, with then a soft creature attached to the bottom. They tended to inhabit shallow coastal waters. Now, over time, the shell would have been covered in sediment, and then later it would turn into rock through fossilisation. At the bottom of the Echonoidia shell, they have their mouth. So they walk along a bit like a starfish, along the bottom of the sea floor, eating all the algae that they can. This is the strange bit though. They have their bottom on the top. Their poo floats out of the top of their shell and into the sea. Now this is quite clever of them, because if they pooed out near their mouth, they could accidentally eat their poo. That's a bit disgusting, right? Now we're going to talk about brachiopods and bivalves. Now these two are very similar, but there are a few differences. A brachiopod has a hinge at the rear, so it opens a bit like this. Whereas a bivalve has a hinge on the left and opens left to right, a bit more like a book. Brachiopods are a marine animal, whereas bivalves are a mollusk. They've been around for nearly 550 million years, and there are still some around today. They can be found quite rarely, but they can be found in the warmest tropical waters, but also cold waters near the Arctic. However, they're not very defenceless to predators coming along to eat them. They've got a few safety features to stop this. They've got a really sticky spine, and this allows them to stick to the sea floor. Not only can they not be picked off easily by predators, but they can also not be swept away by the sea. Oh, you're probably wondering, how do they get their food? How do they survive? And to do this, they open. When they open, the sea currents pass over them, and they can collect different algae or other mini microscopic organisms that are there. They can eat them up, and then they can close their hinge. It's quite clever, really. Now let's talk about coral. Coral can also fossilise. The oldest coral lived more than 500 million years ago, and some of them are still around today. They can be super duper old. Some coral has a super soft body and rarely fossilises, whereas others can fossilise super well, becoming rock, a bit like these ones that I've got here. Now let's talk about fossilised sponges. We've got quite a few different ones that were found in Farringdon. We've got an eyeglass sponge, we've got a cannonball sponge, and we've got a tubular sponge. These are all different sorts. Surprisingly, sponges are animals, not plants, and they've evolved over 500 million years, and there's still loads of them out there today. There's actually over 5,000 different species of sponges. Sponges are bottom-dwelling creatures. They live right at the bottom in the dark depths of the sea, but can also survive in fresh water instead of salt. They've got feeding filters that collect tiny bacteria and particles from the sea and eat them up. There are loads of different sorts of fossils under the sea. Here are some extra ones that we have that are pretty amazing as well.